This is Siskoid of Siskoid's Blog of Geekery, and you're listening to Comics Recollected for July 1983. It's a walk down memory lane back to the spinner racks of that era to see what comics I might have bought, read, what I remember from them. Of course, things are getting a bit complicated for my 11-year-old self at this point. My parents have been divorced for 5 or 6 years. They have shared custody of the kids, but they don't live in the same city. And this is about the time when my dad decided to move even farther away to central Texas. That meant that we would live down there in July and most of August. So though I've decided to keep the release schedule of the original comics intact, and I will be showing you comics that came out in July of '83, I probably only could buy those comics late August when I came back to Canada. Still, to make it makes it simpler if I just keep the July in July. So what's this? Neither of these comics are from July of '83. They actually came out in September of '81. But the reason they're here is because I bought them, and they were actually the only two comics I had with me down in Texas that summer. X-Men number 153 and Marvel Superheroes number 105, which was actually the last issue of that series. And it was basically a reprint series at this point, reprinting older Incredible Hulk stories. We got this, I got them together at the local Walmart, which was, I guess, was a new thing at the time. I remember my dad complaining that this big general store was causing a lot of smaller businesses to close down. I remember that. And these comics were packed together as a pair inside a plastic sleeve, sold together somewhere in one of the aisles. And it's the only comic we got. Marvel Superheroes, the Hulk story, didn't care about it. Still don't care about it. We left it on the floor of the room the whole damn summer and never really touched it. It was disappointing, especially compared to Kitty's Fairy Tale, which was the story in this particular X-Men comic. My first, but this definitely not my last. It started a long love affair with the X-Men that carried me through my teens. And the story wasn't just for me, it was for the whole family, because the fairy tale that Kitty Pryde told Colossus's little sister in this comic basically took the X-Men, turned them into princes and knights and sorcerers and imps and demons. And it was so charming, lighthearted, funny. I didn't even need to get the jokes about Dark Phoenix or Wolverine. It was so sweet. And we used to not only read this together, but we'd put it up as a play with stuffed animals or with ourselves for the older kids, playing the action, reading the dialogue for the younger kids. I even made a tape at one point. I don't know if I made it that summer, but I made a tape, like an audio, like one of those big Finish audios, an audio version of the story where I would do the voices. It was a pretty pitiful Kitty Pryde, I must tell you. But this comic became, and still is, one of my very favorites. I wrote a piece on it on the blog, which I'll put the link down below the video. Probably because it was the only comics I had, and X-Men was the only one that I thought was good. That made sure I would buy X-Men when I came back to Canada. So what else came out that summer? DC Comics presents number 62. Superman teams up with the Freedom Fighters. If you want to get me to buy your comic at this point in my life, you need to put a lot of characters I don't know on the cover. That'll stimulate my interest, get me to buy it, because I wanted to discover as many of these characters as I could in as short a time as possible. And in this case, the characters are all Golden Age characters from published at the time by Quality Comics. And they're all living on Earth X, world where the Nazis won the war, and these guys are fighting Hitler's forces still. I don't remember anything about the story, but it did explain the multiverse a bit better than that one issue of All-Star Squadron I'd gotten. So that really, it started me on my quest to find out more about Golden Age characters. What I call the Nuclear Men story arc continues as Lorraine Riley is turned into Firehawk in Fury of Firestorm number 17. I loved how each issue Firestorm would meet a differently nuclear-powered person, and Lorraine would become a bit of a foe, and then obviously an ally. Looking at it now, it kind of looks like that costume was a ripoff of Jean Grey's Phoenix outfit, possibly. Oh well, no matter. Sandy Plunkett draws a beautiful cover filled with characters I didn't know at the time. So obviously that's why I got it. It's the Defenders number 124, but I probably bought it at the wrong time. A new team is emerging. There's a few of the original X-Men in it. Valkyrie, Gargoyle are there on the cover. The corner box still has the real Defenders, if you will: Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer, Submariner, the Hulk. And I don't remember much from the comic except that I was lost in the storyline. It was a bit talky, so an unfocused issue for me, and so I never really bought another issue of the Defenders except back issues with the real team later on. I'd gotten a taste of the 30th century in DC Comics Presents through the Legion of Substitute Heroes, but my first real taste of the Legion of Superheroes is number 304, this issue. Very simple story by Paul Levitz and Keith Giffen, in which Invisible Kid and White Witch, who are both new members, go to the Legion Academy to brush up on a little training. So you meet all the kids, Bouncing Boy and Duo Damsel. I did not become a hardcore Legion fan quite yet. That would take a few more issues. But again, you can see why I bought this issue. There are a lot of new characters that I didn't know right there on the cover, and this seems to be the formula that gets me to buy. Not very many memories about the next couple comics. New Adventures of Superboy number 46. Basically, the Sunburst storyline continues. And World's Finest Comics number 296. Superman and Batman meet the Pantheon. A group of godlike characters that aren't very memorable. It's a storyline that will run through all the way to number 300. And this whole story arc, I would later wind up trading for older comics that a classmate had. And I'll probably be doing a video just for that load of comics because they're pretty special to me. But this, not special. And that's it for July 1983. If you're living in the present, then you have the internet, and you can go to siskoid.blogspot.com or to any of the links under this video to learn more about the comics we discussed. I wrote some articles about them at some point, and of course I'll be posting pictures from these very comics on the blog. So until next time, which will be August of '83, I'll see you at the spinner rack.